Hello and welcome to GameSack. As you've probably guessed, today I'm checking out some video games based on The Simpsons. A lot of them are pretty bad, but there are several that are actually quite good. Of course, I myself need to be presented in a Simpsons style. Notice that only my mouth is moving. That's how lazy I am. There's probably a better way to do this, but I don't know, so I'm animating all of this by hand. Anyway, let's check out some of these games. The first game I'm going to check out is The Simpsons Road Rage on the Xbox. This game is also available on the GameCube, PlayStation 2, and even the Game Boy Advance. Okay, I have a question for you. Have you ever played Sega's Crazy Taxi? It was a game where you played a taxi driver who had to deliver people to their destinations as fast as he could in order to make as much money as he could and also earn more time to play. Well, Road Rage here is a direct ripoff of Crazy Taxi. In fact, Sega sued Fox over this game, but they settled out of court. Dare I say that this game is a lot better in most ways? Yeah, I think so. Not in every single way, but I'll get to that minor point later. You start the game by choosing your driver. Each one has their own vehicle with its own physics. Then you can choose an area to work in. What you want to do is stop your car in the blue field that surrounds people. These are the ones who need a ride. Once they're in, you'll follow the pointing finger to whatever their destination is. Stop within the glowing area and let them out, and then you get paid. Now go pick up another passenger and keep doing this until your time runs out. You'll earn more time for each successful trip, and the faster you get there, the more time you'll get. You'll also get more money as well.
All right!
Thanks for the ride!
Some trips give you goals like avoiding traffic, which can earn you a bonus if you can do it. Depending on how much money you made once the game is over, you can unlock stuff, like a new vehicle or a new location to work in. I really like the unlocking aspect, as things like this keep me playing so I can unlock everything. This is a definite edge over Crazy Taxi's gameplay setup. There's also Sunday Driver mode where you can play without a timer, but of course you don't get any cash or rewards to help you progress. This is good for learning the areas, I guess, but it's kind of pointless for me. Then there's Mission mode where you have short missions that you need to accomplish, kind of like the other stuff you do in Crazy Taxi, but this is more normal. Like hitting all of the newspaper boxes before time runs out, or trying to get Homer to work without getting his car hit by Smithers and Mr. Burns. This definitely adds to the overall game. The game controls really well and it's simple. Actually, some vehicles control better than others. Overall, it feels a bit more responsive than Crazy Taxi. You don't have to shift from drive to reverse here, you just hold the brake to back up. The graphics are really nice and fairly faithful to the Simpsons world, or rather the town of Springfield. There's a progressive scan option, but only on the Xbox here. I really like the variety of locations that you can work in after you unlock them, and it's all presented in 60 frames per second. The sound is mostly well done. Each person you pick up for a ride is, of course, a character from the show, and they're all properly voiced here.
Hey, dude.
Dating service, please. I should have no problem finding a lady.
Just leave the driving to me, dude.
At first, this is extremely entertaining, but as you can imagine, it starts to get old once you start hearing the same things again and again.
You're with Abe now.
Drive me to the pet store. I want an alligator to flush down the toilet.
No talking while I'm driving.
Crazy Taxi also had this issue, but it's not as bad here. One thing that obviously isn't as good as Crazy Taxi is the music. In fact, you almost don't even notice it here. One other thing that might be a step down over Crazy Taxi is how cramped and congested the various areas are. While it's usually not an issue, it can be hard not to hit stuff sometimes, but I only consider this a very minor issue. Oh well, this is still a fantastic ripoff game. The game has some naysayers since it is a ripoff, but ignore them. They just don't want you to enjoy things. If you enjoy The Simpsons and Crazy Taxi, there is no reason you shouldn't play this. Hell, even if you don't like The Simpsons, I say you should give it a go as it plays quite well.
Seatbelt, schmeatbelt.
Grocery store, please. Another microwave meal for one for dinner.
Okay, I didn't ask for your life story. Now that's driving.
Thanks for the ride.
Next up is Bart vs. the Space Mutants from Acclaim on the Sega Genesis. Oh god, is this a horrible game. So, aliens invade and they need to construct a weapon to take over the planet, but they need anything that's purple to do it. Yeah. For some reason, you have a pair of sunglasses from They Live which lets you see the aliens if you put them on. Doesn't matter much though, as your goal is to spray paint or cover up anything that's purple, at least in the first level. This is much easier said than done, as you need to get everything. The problem is that you can only take 2 hits before you die, and you don't have a ton of lives. It's also very easy to collide with something and take damage or die, since the controls are very fidgety at best. This game is cryptic as hell. Some things you can just spray, but it's often a huge chore to even get to those things to spray them. Of course, you have a limited amount of spray at your disposal too because, well, just because. Did I mention that the famous Gary Kitchen designed this game? Well, he did. He designed this. There are stores that you can buy things from, and sometimes you'll need to use these items, like a wrench on the fire hydrant to wash a purple sign. Sometimes there are people walking by. If you press the C button, you put on your They Live glasses and you can see if they're an alien or not. If they are, you can bounce on them, which gives you a red coin. Of course, you can't bounce on any of the other aliens, which are all over the place because, well, just because. Thanks, Gary Kitchen. Seeing if other people are aliens or not really isn't a big part of the game, so I wonder why this gets its very own button. To use the other tools, you need to pause the game, cycle through them, unpause, and then quickly press the C button. Half of the time it doesn't even work right. For example, I'm supposed to use a rocket to scare off the bird, but no matter what I do, the rocket never launches. That was a waste. There's also a skateboarding segment included for no reason, which is like a dollar store version of the turbo tunnel from Battletoads. This game really sounds fun on paper, but they did not put this together very well at all. It's very ineptly designed. I tried many times, and I couldn't even get past the first level, even using a guide. It's that bad. Gary Kitchen, what am I gonna do with you? To top it all off is some of the worst video game music you will ever hear, and it loops over and over and over. According to the credits, the music was done by Tony Deaf. Yeah, Tony Deaf. Why am I not surprised? At least Bart's voice sample is extremely clear. It had better be because you will be hearing it a lot.
Eat my shorts, man.
The graphics look promising and feature some good scrolling, but that's where it ends, unfortunately. The NES version came out a year earlier in 1991, and it's the first game based on The Simpsons. While it definitely sucks, it is better than the Genesis version in a couple of ways, mainly the control. You can now cycle through your items using the select button and then use them with start. Why the Genesis couldn't do this with button A and start is beyond me. There seems to be more voice samples here, and they're pretty good for the NES.
Cool, man.
Next, the music is much better. While it's nothing more than a broken 8-bit version of the Simpsons theme, it's still light years better than the music that's in the Genesis game. The control is a bit slower, in fact it might be too slow. You can run by holding the jump button, which is the opposite of what you want to do naturally. Bottom line is that neither of these games are worth playing. It's also available on the Master System, Game Gear, and a bunch of European computers because, well, just because.
Eat my shorts, man.
So do you guys like The Simpsons? I sure do, but I'm not the world's biggest fan or anything. Still, it's great in small doses. In fact, that's a great segue into this next game. Let's check it out. This is The Simpsons, sometimes known as Simpsons the Arcade Game or Simpsons Arcade. This is a beat-em-up from Konami that was released in 1991. There was nothing Konami loved doing more than creating arcade beat-em-ups based on licensed properties, and this game is no exception. You can play as Homer, Bart, Lisa, or Marge. Basically, Evil Smithers has stolen a jewel from a jewelry store. Homer smashes into him and the jewel goes flying. Baby Maggie catches it and Smithers catches Maggie. Instead of simply just taking the jewel out of her mouth, Smithers takes the entire baby with him. Yeah, the whole thing. Of course, that means the Simpsons family is off to get Maggie back. Using your character of choice, you use your moves to beat up everyone who is trying to stop you from getting your kid back for some reason. You only have 2 buttons to worry about, an attack and a jump. Each character has their own limited set of moves. Homer punches really fast with his fists. Bart swings his skateboard around. Lisa attacks with her jump rope. And Marge attacks with her vacuum cleaner. Of course, there are plenty of items that you can pick up and toss and some that you can use over and over again like a weapon. There are also food items that can help restore some of your life. If you're playing with a friend, you can also team up for a special attack when you're close to each other, like is shown in this demo scene here. Despite the limited amount of attacks, this game is still pretty fun. There are 2-player and 4-player versions of the arcade machine. Playing 4 players simultaneous with the entire Simpsons family at once is pretty awesome, if a little overwhelming. It has 8 levels, and like most beat-em-ups, it gets a little boring around level 5 or so due to the extreme repetition of the game. I think this game was hyped as being better than it is for a long time because it was never ported to a proper home console. But of course that's changed. Nowadays you can easily download it on the Xbox or PlayStation networks. Oh wait, it's been delisted. Yep, you're screwed. Welcome to your digital future. Enjoy your stay. I was always curious as to why this game never came home, but I'm sure it came down to licensing issues. Acclaim had the rights to Simpsons home games, whereas Konami did not. It's too bad a deal couldn't have been made, because this would have been an awesome game to see on the Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis back then.
Come back here with my kid!
The graphics are great and I love the look of everything. There's often lots of little things going on in the background and the variety of all the different scenes is nice. Of course, there's an elevator stage since this is a beat 'em up. Other characters from the show appear often, but you can't beat them up. However, they sometimes give you food or a weapon to use. The game also occasionally makes use of the exciting scaling feature for you to enjoy. Nice! The bosses don't have a life bar, but they start flashing faster and faster the closer they are to death in typical Konami beat 'em up style. However, there are at least a couple of bosses that don't do this, like the bowling ball in the dream stage or Evil Smithers when you fight him. The sound and music are great, often faithful to the show but with plenty of original stuff, all of it sounding really good. Overall, this is a really fun beat 'em up and it's best played with friends. I say that even as an introvert. You definitely want to check this one out if you haven't. Virtual Bart on the Super Nintendo is an interesting game. As you've probably noticed, a lot of the earlier games based on The Simpsons focus on Bart. This one isn't any different. Basically, there's a science fair at school, and everyone has their crazy or silly experiments on display. Bart wanders into a room that has a virtual reality machine and gets strapped in. Utilizing the Super Nintendo's mind-boggling Mode 7 rotation capabilities, he spins to select one of several different levels to play. You need to beat each of them to complete the game, and you don't have a ton of lives in stock. Each level has its own goal. In one, you get turned into a pig and you need to pull levers around Krusty's ham factory or whatever it is to free the pigs. You can jump and bounce higher by holding the jump button. But be careful, if you fall into the machine, you can get turned into a ham yourself. When you lose your final life, the scene that plays out is kind of disturbing. Then there's the tomato toss where you need to press the button to start the distance gauge and then press it again when you want to toss your tomato. Your goal is to hit everybody crossing at least once, but be sure to save the teachers for last. This one is a bit tough to get the hang of, but I still really enjoy it. Then there's the water park tube slide. You're sliding down the world's longest tube slide, which kind of reminds me of Atari's Stun Runner arcade game. There are plenty of things in the water, like other people, sharks, submarines, and of course corn dogs that you can eat in order to restore some of your health. Wet water park slide corn dogs. You can also collect clocks to increase your time. You need to navigate the maze to get to the correct exit. There are a few false exits just like any real water park slide. This one is fun, but tough to figure out where the proper exit is. In another level, you're turned into a freakish dinosaur with a Bart head. Your goal seems to be to make it through the level while murdering your family. That's right, you murder them. And they're trying to kill you too. You even need to kill other characters from the show. The controls here feel a little bit slippery when you land on a small platform, but otherwise it's not too bad. This one has Baby Bart swinging through the trees for some reason. This one is difficult to control. I kept landing in the grass, which of course kills Baby Bart. I don't like it. Then there's the post-apocalyptic motorbike stage. Here, you're trying to reach Springfield, which is 10 miles away. You have to contend with many obstacles and enemies. You can shoot a tomato gun or something, and also attack to the left and right with the L and R buttons. Not only that, but this uses the incredibly powerful Mode 7 feature which was built into each and every Super Nintendo console. This level really isn't as fun as it could be though. There was also a Genesis version released, and you might be wondering how it compares. If you're not wondering that, well, then you're not a true gamer because, I don't know. Anyway, the amazing rotation is still here. It's a bit less smooth, but still good enough to impress your grandma. The Bart Pig level is the same, except that the A button jumps, which I'm not a big fan of. Since there's no action button here, it's easy enough to get used to. The Bart Dino stage seems to run a lot faster than the Super Nintendo version. Button A jumps and B does your tail whip, and this setup sucks. Despite this and the increased speed, I was still able to get pretty far in the stage before I got bored. The tomato toss is exactly the same, there's just less detail on the ground when the tomato goes flying. Otherwise it's exactly the same, but I think I just said that. I'm not rewinding to find out. I was able to do a lot better at the Baby Bart scene and get much further, but I still don't like it. The water park slide scene is sadly worse. It looks fine, but it doesn't play as well. It also sounds pretty bad, and sometimes it just ends when you make a wrong turn. Maybe that's because I only played this in practice mode here, I don't know. But it's also harder to collect the clocks too. Finally, the post-apocalyptic motorbike scene is much better here. No Mode 7, but the Genesis doesn't need that nonsense because it has blast processing. Besides looking better, it actually makes this segment a bit more playable. You are clearly shooting water balloons here, and when an enemy is near you, you automatically kick the correct direction with the C button. Overall, either version of this game is pretty good. For a 16-bit Simpsons game, that is. Hey there. You enjoying the episode? Good. You like my lip sync on these animated segments? I like doing this with my lips. Ooh. Ooh. It's really fun. Ooh. Anyway, let's check out a Simpsons game that's a little bit more modern. This is the Simpsons game for the Xbox 360, which was released in 2007, which is around the same time the Simpsons movie came out. This game is from EA and is also available on the PlayStation 3, PlayStation 2, Wii, PSP, and DS. This is an amazing game, for the most part. It has a huge budget and very high production value. The game itself is basically a 3D platformer. You can play as each member of the family once you unlock them, and each character has their own unique abilities. Homer can inflate into a giant ball in order to smash things. He also has a super powerful Bart. Bart can glide through the air with his Bartman cape and ride up air currents. He also has a slingshot attack. Lisa has a deadly saxophone attack and can also use conveniently placed statues to pick up and move stuff. You'll need to do this to solve some puzzles. Marge is mostly useless. She uses her megaphone to have people nearby do her bidding. She can make people tear down barriers or even attack other people. The good news is that you don't have to use her that much. You get to wander around Springfield, which acts as a hub world, and it's fairly large. There are lots of collectibles laying around, and each character has their own stuff to collect. Using the bus stops, you can quick travel around town or choose which characters you'd like to control. You can only control 2 characters at the same time, except for the last area, and most levels require a certain pair of characters in order to complete. You can switch between your 2 characters with the D-pad at pretty much any time, and they work together to solve minor puzzles in order to progress. I think maybe the game wants you to play with 2 players because it keeps flashing Connect Controller in the upper right corner of the screen. I don't understand why it's doing this. It is fully playable without a second controller connected. I guess the dummies never bothered to test the game with only 1 controller hooked up. Yeah, this is dumb, but fortunately it's not too annoying.
If the uniform makes a man, you must be a pretty crappy man.
The gameplay itself controls quite well, most of the time anyway. I had a lot of trouble climbing this bridge with Bart. He kept falling off and you have to start all the way over from the bottom when you do. This part is also timed, so that doesn't help. I mean, I still did it because, I'm awesome at video games. Again, except when I'm not. Your goals can seem a little obtuse sometimes, but it won't take you long before you figure out what you need to do. The thing that will get in the way the most is the same thing that infects most 3D platformers: the camera. Simply put, there are times where it can be downright awful. Fortunately, it can usually be controlled with the right analog stick, and then you can press it to recenter on the big boy consoles anyway. I've only played it on the Xbox 360 here. It can definitely be frustrating sometimes, but don't let that stop you from enjoying this game, because there's still a lot to like here. For one, the humor is really good, especially if you like The Simpsons.
Remember, people, we came to this museum to steal, not learn. Don't look at any of the displays. Stay focused.
The writing was done by the staff of the show itself, and it shows. I just said show twice, oh well. There's lots of references to different things, and the game is practically a parody of itself. Unlike most Simpsons games, this one doesn't overload you with a ton of repetitious voice samples. There are some that you'll hear again and again, but it's never annoying.
Ha! Next time you'll think twice about doing your job.
As is typical for this console generation, the voices and sound come from all around you depending on which direction you're facing and if you have your console hooked up in 5.1 surround. The music is excellent and quite fitting for the game. The visuals are the best for any Simpsons video game ever made so far, but I think that goes without saying. The cel-shaded technique is used to great effect here, and it really looks and feels like you're controlling the cartoon. Well, pretty close anyway. Not only are the characters great, but the backgrounds are also very well done with minimal textures. This really helps give you the illusion that you're playing inside of a 3D cartoon. There are lots and lots of cutscenes using real 2D animation as well, and I think these are done by the same people who make the TV show, but that's just a guess. It looks pretty good.
I must hasten home to play my new carjacking game. Give me your ride, jerk.
I'd have to say that this is the second best Simpsons game of all time. I haven't talked about the very best one yet, but I'm saving that one for later on in this episode. This game currently isn't very expensive, so definitely make an effort to get this one if you can. I bought this game for this episode, and I am glad I did.
We don't just kill them. Crush them!
Timber!
Head kiss.
You go, girl.
Stop so I can kill you. Grass lickers.
Now for something different, let's look at Itchy and Scratchy Miniature Golf Madness for the Game Boy. This is a golf platformer, kind of like Ninja Golf on the Atari 7800, but this one is a much better game. You play as the cat Scratchy, who just wants to enjoy a nice 9 holes of some relaxing putt-putt golf. But the sadistic mouse Itchy wants to kill you mainly because you exist, and he'll succeed a lot. Of course, being a cat, you start out with 9 lives, and you can collect more. You also get 2 continues. Basically, you stand near the ball on either side, then press the button to fill the meter, and then press it again to hit the ball when the meter is where you'd like it to be. That is, if Itchy lets you do it, because he is all over the place. Fortunately, there are weapons laying around that will let you murder Itchy, but there are many, many Itchies, so try to kill them all so you can play in peace. You can switch between any of the weapons that you've collected with the select button, and each weapon can only be used a limited number of times. If you don't have a weapon, you can always try to kill Itchy with your golf club if you have really good timing. Every hole is long and very hard. Let me rephrase that. Each stage is pretty big, and the best you'll probably ever finish with is 14 strokes. Yeah, there's just no way I can talk about this game without the innuendos, sorry. There seems to be no par, and the game will let you hit the ball as many times as it takes. Basically, the higher your score, the worse you're doing. Scattered here and there in each stage is an item that you can collect which will subtract 1 stroke from your current score. Overall, the game is actually kind of fun. Sometimes you have to hunt down your ball. The arrows in the bottom right will always tell you the direction that it's in, so just follow them. The graphics are decent for the Game Boy with lots of violent animations. I think most other golf games could probably benefit from a bit more violence. The music will drive you absolutely insane, however, as it's very short and loops over and over. You can turn it off at the beginning of the game, thankfully. While this isn't an outstanding game, it could be so much worse. Check it out if this looks interesting to you. Did you know that The Simpsons is the longest running American sitcom? It's been on the air for over 30 years. That's right, I'm here to play games and drop knowledge bombs. Anyway, I've just got a couple more games that I want to show you. This is Bart's Nightmare for the Super NES. This one is similar to Virtual Bart in that it consists of a bunch of different levels with unique play styles. This game was also released earlier than that one. Unfortunately, this title is pretty awful. You fall asleep doing your homework and you dream that said homework is blown out the window. Suddenly, you're on the street with a bunch of weird things trying to kill you with absolutely no idea what's going on. Everything here is crazy, just like you'd expect in a dream, but man is it relentless. It turns out that this area is the hub world to the game. You see, you're supposed to track down the papers blowing down the street and then jump on them, which sounds a lot easier than it is since there's so much stuff trying to kill you. If you manage to do this, you can play one of two different levels. Each level is their own thing and, of course, with its own goals. So far, I've only been able to find 3. There's this one where you need to jump from pillar to pillar grabbing the eggs, I think they are. You have a few tries to get this right before the stage ends. Then, there's this one in which Bart plays a Godzilla-like creature hell-bent on destroying the city. Keep walking to the right, taking out planes, tanks, and of course lay waste to everything the humans have carefully and lovingly built. You don't like it, so you've got to smash it. This one looks a bit easier than it is. It's slightly tough to shoot the lasers because you have to let the current laser reach its destination before you fire another. If you try to shoot again too quickly, the first laser will disappear to make way for the laser you just fired. There's also this shooter where you're Bartman. Your only weapon is firing your slingshot, which doesn't go very far. Fortunately, you have 3 lives here with the ability to gather more throughout the stage by shooting down balloons. There are lots of bosses to fight, and the good news is that they have a life bar. I'm actually surprised that the game gives you such a courtesy. This one controls strangely, but it doesn't take long to get a good feel for it. If you succeed at a stage, you get that page back in your collection. If you lose all of your lives before finding all of the pages, you're graded accordingly. The hub world is by far the most frustrating part of the game. It's easy to miss pages flying by since you're too busy paying attention to the 10 other things on screen trying to kill you. It's also easy to take damage here, but if you blow bubblegum at the blue Z's, you can earn a little bit of health back. In my opinion, you shouldn't be able to take damage or die in a hub world. That's just dumb. I don't like it. But hey, at least the parallax scrolling is nice. This game would be much better without this area, and I'm glad they got rid of this concept in Virtual Bart once they finally made that one. Of course, there was also a version for the Genesis. The hub world here still sucks just as much, and I'm left wondering what kind of human being would think up such a thing. Certainly not someone who enjoys playing video games, that's for sure. The Bartzilla stage is pretty much the same here. It's still not a ton of fun, and now it has a bit less color. I was also able to see a couple of stages that I never made it to on the Super Nintendo version. This one reminds me of Dig Dug. You're floating in some stuff, best I can tell. You spear bad guys and then pump them up to destroy them. There's also this one where you grab your mallet or other weapon to destroy things that are trying to kill you. At first, it's itchy and scratchy. After a while in this room, you move to the next, where there are evil vacuum cleaners. Gotta say, I can't really recommend either version of this game, though the Super Nintendo one is slightly better. Either way, you're not in for much of a good time here. Finally, let's check out The Simpsons Hit and Run on the Xbox. It's also available on the GameCube, PlayStation 2, and the PC. First up though, have you ever heard of Grand Theft Auto, particularly Grand Theft Auto 3? Not many people have. You should check it out. It's definitely a hidden gem. Anyway, Hit and Run is basically a ripoff of Grand Theft Auto 3. No lawsuits this time though. Yep, this is a big sandbox game with a fairly large town that's divided into a few different sections. Basically, you start out playing as Homer, and you're running around doing mission after mission, spending a lot of time in your car or various other vehicles that you unlock as you play. Of course, you can steal any other vehicle you'd like as well, but it doesn't actually show you pulling the other driver out. You're just suddenly in the vehicle. The early missions include stuff like delivering Lisa's forgotten homework to her school, smashing Smithers' car so he doesn't make it to work and see your scorpion farm, destroying all of the generators that power the camera so you can take a nap in your office, things like that. Many of these missions are timed, but not all of them. There are coins that you collect, and you can use these to buy stuff in the game like newer vehicles. Like Grand Theft Auto 3, you also have a map that shows where your destination is, but you also have arrows on the street pointing the way. You can even run over people and cause chaos as you drive around. Not only that, but you can beat people up, though be careful not to do this stuff too much. If you do, this can trigger a hit and run. That means the po-po is on the hunt for you until your wanted level goes down. You can see by the amount of yellow in the gauge down here how close you are to triggering a hit and run. Of course, as you can tell by the video footage I've been showing, you can play as several different characters throughout the game, each with their own set of missions to complete. Sometimes, you'll team up with someone else briefly to help them on their mission. Like here, where Homer teams up with Marge to destroy the truck delivering the evil video games.
Sorry, Bart. I can't serve booze to a minor. It ain't right.
I'm here to buy fireworks.
Oh, hell yeah.
Just like Grand Theft Auto, you can screw around if you're not currently on a mission, or you can stop your mission if you want to start screwing around so you can do random things or side quests. Some of the missions seem really tough at first. Well, maybe a couple of them. Actually, most of them are decently easy, and it's rare to fail one. But it can and will happen. The humor in this game is mostly pretty awesome, and I laughed a lot as I played through. And I think you will too, though it probably helps to be familiar with a lot of these characters.
Oh, I hope do not press means press right away. Now to return this stuff before the cops find me sitting around talking to myself.
This is an extremely enjoyable game. The graphics are pretty good for their time with a nice cartoony look. It's pretty much on par with what we got in Road Rage. The Xbox version has a progressive scan option, of course, and also a widescreen mode as seen here. Unfortunately, there can be plenty of screen tearing at times, but I didn't find it too distracting. Some of the cutscenes seem to clip the characters off on the top and the bottom, however. The GameCube version offers 480p, but the console just isn't powerful enough to have a kick-ass widescreen mode. It also seems to drop some frames, making for a slightly jerkier experience, and it also has some screen tearing as well from time to time. However, the cutscenes don't cut off any of the characters. I assume the Xbox version wouldn't either if you play in 4x3 mode, but yeah, I'll stick to widescreen, thanks. I think it's just that on the Xbox version, the cutscenes are cropped instead of actually wider. The PlayStation 2 version doesn't offer 480p or widescreen since it's incredibly weak. I'm surprised it can even get an image all the way through the video cable and onto the TV screen without the graphics dying midway. Seriously though, the frame rate is even more jittery than the GameCube version by a noticeable amount, and there's tearing on pretty much every frame. Not to mention all of the typical ugly PS2 jaggies. It's still a great game here though, but if you have a choice, please choose any other version. The sound here is really well done. Of course, you have lots of voice acting from the real cast.
How can I sleep with that camera? Oh, sexy girls could be watching me on the internet.
Some of it does get a bit repetitive while you're driving, but there are a lot more voices here given the mission structure of the game.
Nothing lasts forever.
The fact that you can play as different characters throughout the game also helps cut down on the repetition.
It's time for some road rage, Bart Simpson style.
The music is pretty much perfect. It's often super happy and silly, just like the show. You can tell that this game doesn't take itself too seriously, and I love that. Overall, this game is truly a treat to play, and I recommend it to everyone. Even if you're not a big fan of The Simpsons, it's still a fantastic game. I'd love to see a modern follow-up to this game, or at least a re-release to get rid of the screen tearing and have some HD graphics. Hell, why not do both? Play this game if you can. This is as good as it gets for video games based on The Simpsons.
I dented your car, which I suppose also dented my car. But still, I dented your car.
Oh, I wanted a peanut. Stay on target. Stay on target.
Eat dink, buddy.
I'm a lean, mean speed thingy. Ow! My neck! I wish I had a dog with a saddle. See, Montgomery Burns, I know you're guilty.
There you go, that's a good example of the Simpsons games for you. While I certainly didn't come close to showing anywhere near all of them, this should give you a pretty good taste. I at least made a good effort to show you most of the good ones. And a couple turds. I think my favorite has gotta be Simpsons Hit and Run. Like I said, we really need an update of that one. Anyway, what is your favorite Simpsons game? How about your least favorite? Let me know. In the meantime, thank you for watching GameSag. Ah yes, another mediocre episode in the bag. Time to hit the sack. I'm a real boy. It was all a dream. Or maybe I'm the dream. There's only one way to find out. And for some reason, that's to play Super Mario RPG from Squaresoft, available for your Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Gary Kitchen's Super Battle Tank War in the Golf.